Okay, good day, ladies and gentlemen. So today we're going to talk about compression. We're going to talk a little bit about the what and the why we have compression, and we're going to talk about the different types of compression, so largely the difference between lossless and lossy compression. So compression is the act of reducing the size of a file. Okay, so we're going to take an image and we're going to try and make that file size as small as possible. And then we have decompression, which is when we do the opposite of we take that reduced file size and then restore it back to its original. Now, these days, media files tend to be what I would consider huge. You guys are probably used to dealing with downloading large media files that are hundreds of megabytes. Whereas when I was growing up and using computers, the idea of a 100 megabyte file was incredible. Most of our work would be saved on a 1 meg floppy disk. So these large files are relatively new. And the problem is they take a lot of computer memory to store. When you have these large files, they transmit very slowly as well. So if you want to send a large file over the internet, that's going to take a lot of time, as opposed to sending a small file, which should just be in a blink of an eye. So there tends to be two types of different compression algorithms out there. There's lossless and lossy. Lossless compression means that when we decompress the file, then it looks exactly the same as when we compressed it. Okay, so lossy means that the opposite, so that when we decompress it, it's changed. The file is no longer has the same high quality as when we compressed it. So when we think about lossy compression algorithms, the first two that we often use are something called reducing the pixels or reducing the color lookup table. So if you think about the images that we take with our cameras, they're quite often 10 meg images, 12 meg images. And the question is, do we really need to store what the image that we're taking in 12 megabytes? Often the only time these images are ever displayed are back on the camera, which is a tiny display screen, and we just don't see most of the megabytes that we're using. So we can reduce the image size by reducing the number of pixels in the image. Or if we have a image that's being stored using a 24-bit color lookup table, but it's only using 8 different colors, maybe it's a computer graphic, then 21 bits per pixel are being unused. So what we can do then is to reduce the size of the color lookup table, and that's going to have a massive impact on our file size, because then we're reducing the file size per pixel, and there might be hundreds of thousands of pixels. Now, as I said, lossy compression, it means that when we decompress the file, we get some loss of quality. But the question is whether that really matters or not, because most of our files are actually shot with using way too many pixels anyway. So for instance, you can see here I've got two images. The image on the left was downloaded from a high quality artist's website, and then I've taken that and then I've compressed it by 75%-ish, and you can see that there is no discernible difference at this size. Now, if I were to take that image and blow it up and put it onto a billboard next to the road, or maybe a widescreen TV at the least, you might be able to see some pixelation. But at the scale at which we look at most images, I mean, we look at most images on our phones or on our laptops, nobody is going to see any real difference. So lossless compression is when we have some algorithm. So we're going to apply some computer program, some algorithm to our data, and that's going to give us a smaller file size. There are two main types of lossless compression that we're going to look at. The first is called run length encoding, and that's where we take a frequency value pairing, and we'll talk about that in the next video. And then finally we'll talk about Huffman encoding, which is a little more complicated but has some spectacular results in file compression, and it's based on recoding colors depending on how frequently they're used. Okay, so this was a short video just to introduce you to the idea of compression. As always, look forward to seeing you soon.